Mhm. This is a pre-warm up. Right. Yay. Mm-hmm.
Some people not gonna like what me say, but me I gonna say it anyway. We are gonna talk about slavery and the effects of it today. Some people just don't want to know about 400 years ago. But the thing about slavery, it's affecting people now. I tell you no lie, when I see a film about slavery, water comes to my eye. You wanna know why? Because it was me. I'm the same black man hanging in that tree, you see. They couldn't control my soul, so they had to control my body mysteriously. I and I has returned as the big Rasta man Macka. See, what about all the life that were lost? What about the black Holocaust? What about African slavery and what it's done to you and me? What about all the blood that was shed? What about the innocent dead? What about when the ship overload and it throw them overboard? Oh, I can see The effects of slavery still in the community, no identity. Suffering from amnesia, a case of lost memory, black man and woman. Can't you see your history never start on the plantation? Original man, man of creation, father of all nation. Just stay strong. Let go the brainwash mentality, no go on like no Babylonian. The road is long. You're gonna meet a lot of obstacles, no bow to the temptation. Run Satan. Tell the boy to go away. You not in a nothing with him plan. Hold up your hand. To the Almighty One, you are part of a great nation, man. What about all the mothers that cried? What about all the children that died? What about all the suicide and the pain we feel inside? What about all the shackles and chain? What about the messing up of the brain? Don't know from where you came, you don't even know your name. Aided and abetted by some unscrupulous African. 100 million is the estimation that died on the crossing of the plantation with no compensation. Holocaust is a word that they use for what the Nazis did to the Jews. Compensation was never refused. Their own land they even got to choose. So what's wrong with us? Was the Black Holocaust not so serious? What's wrong with us? Was the Black Holocaust not so serious? What's wrong with us? Was the Black Holocaust not so serious? What's wrong with us? Is the Black Holocaust not so serious? Some people not gonna like what me say, but me I gonna say it anyway. We are gonna talk about slavery and the effects of it today. Some people just don't want to know about 400 years ago, but the thing about slavery, it's affecting people now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we have a solution. We have a solution. We do. Come on. What happened? We can get our solution to play. Hey, all right. Well, maybe I may want to come on cam just for the record to show you that I am here. Hey, and how are you? Greetings, Hotep, Akwaba, and Bless Up. And welcome back to the recovery room and the recovery zone of Racism Non-Anonymous. That revolutionary 12-step self-help program that has been uniquely designed with you and me, the African, in mind. Designed to support our healing and recovering from what I reference the shit, traumatic stress of the human intentional type. It is AKA, also known as the Ma'afa, as Dr. Marimba Aini calls it and called it. And the Ma'afa in rough translation means the incredible injury that Africans has experienced at the hands of those out there in the West. Out here now in the West. I don't know where we're northwest, what? The West here. Western civilization. Right. And I am Sis Abena Africa, the recovering African who is culturally enslaved here in America. And I am a representative from the voices in the margins, true to the cause of African liberation via unification and utilizing the tool of healthy and effective communications. I am a traumatized traumatologist, trauma queen, and queen of trauma. That is trauma and traumatic stress, what it is and how it has and continues to work in the lives of African descendants up to and including myself. Like I said, I'm traumatized. That means I have experienced a whole shitload of shit, as have we all. And I do also recognize that not only we folks of African descent have experienced trauma, all groups of people have experienced trauma. However, first and foremost, Self-help programs is about selfishness. It's about self-help. It's about focusing on the self. And so when I put together this program, I was focused first and foremost on myself. And as a woman of African descent whose ancestors were captured and enslaved out here in the West, I am a victim of that process, that trauma, that's the original trauma of the human intentional type, whereby there were some quote unquote humans, and maybe that's a little catch in there because it seems that way back then, way back when, maybe Caucasians weren't quite human. Because where they came out of the caves, according to the story, and here we go with the story, the drama. It's the drama, it's the trauma, yo. So when they came out of the caves and shit, and I know that they did because I heard folks like Dr. Sandra Bloom, a leading traumatologist here in Philadelphia over some 30 years ago, okay? As she talks and teaches, and she's done lots of extensive work on trauma, the sanctuary model, of which I was a patient back then. And in one of her presentations on the sanctuary model, because at this time now I am a professional in the field of social services and supports and so forth, right? On the community level. And she would do a lot of presentations on, community based levels about implementing the principles of the sanctuary model to support healing and recovering from trauma and traumatic stress. Yes. And so as a result, yeah, in one of her trainings, she talked about how the origin story of Caucasians started out where their original traumas were running from the woolly mammoths and shit like that, the dinosaurs, and they lived in the caves, right? And during that period, for them, they were not quote unquote civilized. They were not civil. This is what was going on in the northern cradle. Is it the northern cradle of civilization way back when? Yeah, and as a result, that those traumas, they learned how to defend and protect themselves and had to learn how to protect themselves from that reality. And so, however, when they were able to at least move beyond that period and travel to the southern cradle of civilization, cradle, they, encountered African civilizations and kingdoms. And they, Plato and folks like that, engaged the Greeks and shit. They engaged in study under African civilizations. And it was their, I suppose, intent to kind of become civilize themselves from that cave existence to a civil society. What they encountered when they entered and came upon African civilizations, they like, whoa. And so they came and they were welcome and they studied and they learned and they grew and they changed. It's almost like they were the fucking gremlins. I think about, you think about the movie The Gremlins. It's always, they're always telling on themselves. They tell us about themselves in their stories, in their movies, in their books, in their documentation. They tell us. And I recognize when the gremlins, it's like that's what how they became the fucking gremlins. Gremlins, when they get water, if water hit them, they would convert into these awful things, right? I recognize human life, plant life, we thrive in the water. It supports the spirit's growth and development. We are planted in the womb and we germinate for 9 months in water, a water environment, right? However, it seems that there's something different and was different. Maybe it was different way back when with white folks when they developed, germinated, and developed. Because I believe the Dogon story of creation, of which Dr. Ani lays out for us in her seminal work, Yurugu. I did share that and show that. I don't have it with me at the moment. However, the Dogon story, as told by Dr. Aini in her work, is a creation story that makes sense to me. And I'm always about working to make shit make sense, because we live up in a system and a bunch of system that seems to make no flip flopping sense. I mean, like, yo, how do you have a candidate for president who is a convicted criminal and he is on the ballot? It makes no flip flopping sense until you flip the fucking script. Recovery teaches us to flip the script to find the truth, or another side. Look at shit from another side. As a therapist, I am always supporting people with just offering some alternative views of shit. We tend to become stuck in a view that has been nurtured in us since childbirth, since childhood. And we hold on to these beliefs and these views about things, and we have a difficult time shifting and seeing an alternative view. And when we do, it provides us some insight into shit, and we see shit different. Like, oh, from that perspective, some shit makes some sense. Like, oh, okay. And then we could say, and now what do I need to do for me, right? So where did I zone off to? Somewhere with white folks and their development and their becoming civil, and whether they're human. By now, certainly their acts and actions have been very intentional. They certainly consider themselves to be human, so I will respect that. Even though, even though the behaviors, inhumane, just plain and fucking simple, like just plain and simple, inhumane behaviors that humans do, shit that do, they shit, stresses you, human intentional type, right? And so yeah, we were saying just about that, Dr. Ani, the Ma'afa, what I call traumatic stress of the human intentional type. The shit creates deep emotional wounds in us, and that's what the healing is about. Not only healing the wounds that we already have, we also have to develop the skills and the tools to protect ourselves from the shit, because it has hit the fan and it's flying all over the place. I recognize and understand It's like a 50-50 chance you take when you go out your door. Look, it's a 50-50 chance sitting here in my home, in my room, in my bedroom, in my safe space, my recovery zone. Our bedroom is a true recovery room, right? We go in there and we go to bed just like you go to the hospital, you lay down. It's the recovery zone, it's a recovery area to kind of lay down the mind, the body, and allow the spirit to rest. However, coming from where I'm from, you could be in your bedroom minding your own business, sleep, and a bullet comes through because some folks across the way, got caught up in their shit and start slinging some shit, yep. And that shit came and hit you just like that. And, what can you do? Well, in that regard, people have options. You have an option of finding a location and moving where that's not happening. Yet, and if that's your option, then you need to know, okay, what are going to be the resources I need to make that happen? Because if I do not have the resources to make that happen, then it's probably not going to happen. Yep, right? Let me see how about if I do that a little bit better, maybe more full. Yeah, my bad. Apologies. Right. Yet, so yeah. Where am I? I'm not sure. Talk about yeah. All right, so that distracted me and cut my train of thought right off. Just doing that. And so maybe I'm gonna put it back and bring my head back to where I was at just now before we had that little blurb here. Safety issues, in the hood. The shit has hit the fan, flying everywhere. Humans are hurting each other intentionally. And what I recognize as I, as I developed this program, Racism Not Anonymous, it was just gradually over time, and while I was in my own process of recovery. Yeah, recovery first, because actually there's something. My journey started with my entrance into treatment program for cocaine, crack. I guess it became crack at the time that I was exposed to it. It wasn't termin. It wasn't called crack just yet. At least not in my hood. It was just cocaine. It was freebasing, and I no, actually, I went to hospital before I was introduced to the cocaine. Actually, that's right. My first introduction to the hospital was my own little suicide attempt, and I was 25, I think. So that was like 85. Yeah, my first husband and I separated. That's how I separated from my first husband. I took these pills and shit was like, and I had started therapy. All right, I have to sit back for a minute and just kind of process. However, I believe I started therapy before I was introduced to crack cocaine because when I was introduced, it was all around the same time, 85, 86. I know that. And I know by the end of 86 I had my shit together. I know that. That was that, between 25 and 26, and I, going through depression, learning. That's when I first learned about being an ACOA and what that meant and why I was having the difficulties that I was having in my, in that job with when I was married to my first husband. And that was in 85, right? And we lived with his sister, so anyway, yeah. And however, I worked as a nursing assistant in a hospital, a major hospital, um, at the night shift, midnight to 8, 12 to 8 shifts. So you got a lot of folks coming in with, after 2 o'clock in the morning, folks coming in from the bar, beat up, they need stitches and shit like that. And there was a magazine, in the nurses station area, and I came across an article again about, on the outside I appear to be strong and in control, yet on the inside I was hurting, something to that effect. And that struck me because that was me. And that article was an article about adult children of alcoholics, and that's when that first movement began to come to the surface. It was actually in the 80s or early 80s when there was research and information coming forward to give a picture and a light to what the experience was like for children growing up in chaotic alcoholic family systems. And see, during this time, by 85, see, from 60 in the 60s and the 70s, and into the early 80s, when the issue of domestic violence and child abuse was happening and being uncovered, the civil rights shit was going on. Civil rights women were granted their freedom to party, drink, bar hop, finger pop. Women were liberated. And the children, what we experienced during that time period from 60s, 70s, and into the early 80s was this chaos. So by the 80s, in the mid 80s, there had been a lot of research. This is what we were experiencing in the hoods. Now, in the white communities, and see, that's why there's always this two, the both sides, both ends. Racism, they're the perpetrators and the victims is what it was. The perpetrators of the racist shit that we were experiencing down here in the hood, what they were going through was alcoholism and all that shit. They were drinking and partying because they had it made. You know what? The world was their what olive, what is it? Theirs. So they were partying and drinking, and those behaviors had an impact, negative, on the children. And they began to do research and understand the impact of, addiction, and alcoholism was, more known as a disease of addiction. This AA and things had been around at that point already, right? And so in the mid 80s, information and research started to unfold to help people understand what ACOA, adult children of alcoholics, and how that affected that. However, I certainly identified with it because I come from a family system of alcoholics. Alcohol was what they use to manage the pain of the system, and to manage the pain and nourish some form of enjoyment or pleasure, because the whole process, even of at that point, by the 60s, a process of assimilation and shit, especially up here up north, it seemed to be with pretty nice and complete and completing, whereby our parents' generation and maybe the generation prior begin, in the hoods, by my parents' generation, alcohol is what the community, the culture is supported. Drinking, partying, drinking, working, church, drinking, because they did what they did, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday night. Sunday they got up, went to church and did all that. And after church, they still had a taste of smile hidden back there, as they called it, a taste of smile. And so the taste of smile, that was my great aunt's generation, my mom's generation, And at that point, drinking was pretty normal in this society. And everything that we learned in this society, we being people of African descent, especially those of our whose ancestors were enslaved here, All the things that we know and do, we learn from our socio-emotional parents, white folk, who enslaved us here. And the whole process of enslavement in and of itself is an example of traumatic stress of the human intentional type. The shit, kidnapping, holding hostage, raping, physically assaulting, neglect, physical, social, emotional neglect. All of those addiction, alcoholism. You drinking and drunk, you can't take care of the people, the damn kids. Y'all up here drunk on top of the damn shit. Them people down here dying, vomiting, and all kind of shit. And you too drunk to even pay attention. However, that's what happens in families. It's what goes on in families when addiction to alcohol, drugs, or any other thing is present and has progressed to, a stage 4 type situation. Now, I have been talking about addiction, alcoholism, and that was just along the lines of my story, moving in my process of growth and change, because that's what it's all about. Always growth and change. We were planted here, we were seeded here, and we begin a process of growth and change. And that process continues until what? We stop growing and changing. And the thing that stops us is transition into something else, somewhere else. Right? Yeah. However, and at the same time, addiction is addiction is addiction. And as I continue in my journey, after the process of healing and understanding what had happened to me, why I did what I did, how I did, when I did, what, yeah, all that stuff, and what I needed to do to get where I wanted to be. And then life continued, and I continued to grow and learn a whole lot of shit. Because it was then at that point, yeah, I went back to school and, got my degrees and working in the profession and working in the field and learning and seeing and feeling and experiencing a whole lot of shit. And like, yo, you know what? You folks are addicted to power and control. And that's a primary disease going on in the planet, because I'm a systems theorist, the systems researcher, the systems theorist. I am ABD in couple and family therapy, right? All but dissertation. Um, Yet I have all the knowledge and the information. I had the mind of a researcher, always have, before I went to college and blah, 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 right? I think and I ask questions. I've always been considered deep. So yeah, I'm just like, racism. That's a system of racism. The Europeans are addicted to power and control, and the whole rest of the world, we're all codependent on their asses and behave in very codependent ways, and engage in people are seeking power and control because we don't have it and have never really had it for ourselves. Internally, you seek it externally. And you know the European culture, their way of thinking and behaving in the world is has been that's where I'm still enslaved in this culture, this sick way of thinking and behaving. The way you think about people, other people, whether they're a different ethnic group, a different gender, class, the people think shit. And based on what you think, then you proceed with the behavior. You're going to do something. If I think this is trash, I'm going to throw it away. If this is some shit, I'm going to flush it. And if I believe you, quote unquote, black African person, you, aka Igga, are an animal, I treat you in that way. Thought, behavior, no capacity, no feeling part in between. See, that's the thing. They're absent of a spirit, and that's where I started off with talking about them, coming about them caves, and what the dude. Don't do it. I have a cat, and she wants to come and knowing. Why do you have? I think they have a sense. Animals, the spirit. You know why she knows I'm doing something that I don't want to be distracted, so she can walk her little out of my room. Go ahead. Until she's gonna show off. Showing off for the just like children. She's staying in here. If I was not on this camera, she would not be doing this. And she know better. And you know I'm gonna have to come and get her because I have a plant behind me that she's working to get out. So you know what? That means we're gonna have to take a real quick break. And that's pretty good because I was wanting to yeah, this the tune. Let's do with that for a minute. No, we just want to play the tune. Can we play it? No, we can't play it. And my cat is behind me, and I'm not sure what she's doing. However, she is. I'm not happy, and she knows that she has to know. Let's see. We got a mix over here. That's what it's time to do. Yeah, how about that? Let's do that.
Let me see your horn. Yeah, man. From your move from the viper, let me see your lighter. Ay, ay, ay. Yaga, yaga, yo. Ay, ay, ay. Yaga, yaga, yo. All the people who are progressive and I try and improve them situation. Yeah, man. This I want your name step up. All who are step up in a life, come step up. Moving to a higher kind of height to a step up. Stop wasting your time and step up. Up the ladder you be climb, come step up. All do a step up in a life, come step up. Moving to a higher kind of height, so I step up. And stop wasting your time and step up. Up. Climb up, climb up. Everybody climb up, climb up, climb up. Everybody climb up, climb up, climb up. Everybody climb up, climb up, climb up. Everybody climb up. Always try to better yourself and try to progress. Work and perseverance is the way to success. Always try your best, nothing any less. Stepping up the ladder with the righteousness. Look how you are live, look how your life is in a mess. Some of the things you're doing, man, are foolishness. We are kings and queens, prince and the princess. Now is not the time for you to dress this. I want your name step up. All who are step up in a life, come step up. Moving to a higher kind of height, boy, step up. And stop wasting your time and step up. Up the ladder you be climb, come step up. All who are step up in a life, just step up. Moving to a higher kind of height, boy, step up. And stop wasting your time and step up. Up.
All right, climb up, climb up. That's the big Rastaman Macka B over there in England. I learned a lot from the Rasta, the music, the messages in the music. So, where was I before Miss Barley distracted me for a minute? And I need to say this. Yeah, here comes some drama. Is this some drama? I am aware of a sensation in my mouth that it seems to me affects or impacts my tone and my talking. Like, I imagine that others can tell or sense that I have a mouth full of something. Maybe it sounds even like I'm slobbering. I don't know. Yeah, I have this sensation and this feeling, and I'm aware of it, where it comes from, because I have new teeth, prosthetic teeth. Who knew? I didn't know what I was doing. I did not know. It's just like prosthetic teeth. Like, oh, okay. And then, because this is where the drama starts to show up. It's drama, and it's highly traumatic, traumatizing, and in part, what Racism Non Anonymous intends to help people do, look at, black folks to look at yourself, look deeply at yourself, and ask yourself some questions about the way you think and behave towards yourself first, as well as other African descendants. Starting with self first, self help, African first. Yes, you go and look at and have experience with other groups outside of those of your own, if you consider yourself Black African, of African descent, right? Self. It's yourself, then family, then your community, and the broader society, right? So we're looking at how we treat ourselves and our family, our black selves and our black families, and think about it. Do we behave towards ourselves the same way white folks have behaved towards us? Because they have taught us. They have been our socio-emotional parents. They have socialized us into their culture, their way of thinking and behaving. And their culture is diametrically opposed to my culture as a woman of African descent. I stand on the principles of Macka and justice, which is assuring no one gets hurt and assuring those who need the most help get the most help. That's not the running theme or thread in the European culture. It's like awful to get your own, or what are some of the slogans that came from Roman and Greek time and shit that they still live and practice. And anyway, that's what that dude called Trump is working to make America back to. Maybe that was when it was great for them. It was when it was great for them. For him, he's focused on himself. Don't give a shit about us, me. His thought about me is that I am simply a tool to be used. I'm his to do what he says because he has the power and control over me. And that's not okay no more. Time to step up and step up out of this shit, yo. And so the Racism Non-Anonymous in the book, Malcolm's Mandate, will support you with challenging yourself. A, as a person of African descent, and B, even for Caucasian folks, can also recognize and see themselves, ask themselves the same questions. Are you behaving? Are you thinking in a sick way that somehow, because of the color of your skin, that somehow you deserve to treat another group a certain way, and or that the shit you listen to with Trump, that you think that that's okay? That's sort of like the mental illness, and that is like the shit that you full of. They always say we black folks, we full of shit. We're full of trauma. We're full of traumatic stress of the human intentional type. It has been heaped upon us everywhere we are for the last flip flopping how many hundreds of years, yo? Just saying. Traumatic stress causes deep emotional wounds. A trauma to the body causes a wound, whether it's a head injury, a broken bone. Traumatic stress causes deep emotional wounds, and you don't see those. However, you will experience those from other folks who have them, because it comes out of their fucking mouth, what they're thinking, and it comes out of their behaviors, what they're doing. That is how we see people's deep emotional wounds. When people coming at you with some shit, some bullshit, some horse shit, some fucking chicken shit, it's a reflection of their deep emotional wounds, the trauma, the traumas that they have experienced that have been unhealed, untouched, marginalized, minimized. It kind of like just as simple as that. Yeah, recovery is a simple program for complicated shit and situations, yo. And we are in a complicated situation in this system of racism, white supreme lunacy. It's still what I classified it 25 years ago. And yo, it's like, yo, I'm back. Hey, YouTube. It's been a good minute. Y'all remember me? The recovering African. I was recovering AA way back when I first started. Recovering African American. That's what it was. Recovering AA. And then I was true to the cause over there with the Dusty folks at Dusty.com some time back. It was during that time that I always envisioned being able to and wanting to simply do a fucking video. Let me talk to you. I can talk more than I can sit up here and write a whole text and And yeah, and anyway, that's why I am ABD. Because the dissertation part is you got to go and just sit somewhere and write all this shit. Like, nobody got time to be writing all this shit. Let me tell the people and talk to the people, please. Yo, but I can't get to call myself a doctor. I don't get to wear that label or carry that label because I haven't taken all this shit that I learned in my head and written it down, following the format and the shit that they say, oh, besides, before that is a PhD. Before I could write anything, they had to agree with the question that I wanted to ask and research. And if they didn't agree with the question that I wanted to ask, then that would be an issue. And I'm like, that's when we getting ready to hold up right here. Because they say, I'm the one that have to pay all these goddamn student loans for this shit. And you going to tell me what I could pay for, what question I want to research. You want to tell me what to research. But I'm paying for it. That did not compute. And it has not computed yet up until this point, because until something is compute and make some damn sense for me, then I'm not able to move forward with it. Because it make no sense. And on top of that, this whole process of doing the dissertation, putting the shit in writing, mean that you have to remove all of your spirit out of the way. Me would have had to, based on the questions that I'm researching and asking and what I'm talking about. And even, if I had to do it, reframe my shit in a way that my, professor would have been okay with, I have to contain my feeling because it's a huge injustice. So I'm pissed, fuck off. I'm angry because my spirit works just well. And anger is the natural response to acts of injustice. So now I got to manage this anger because it's part of me. Every time I'm walking up in there, I'm like the fuck, and I'm paying for it. And here goes some more shit. Yeah, look, I'm in my 30s now. I've been 30 years already of growing up on this shit. Now here we come with the next load of shit. Soon I get myself in this position in school, and I'm paying for it. Now you want to tell me what the hell I could research and study? And then tell me I had to go in the damn room by myself and write all that shit up. And then after I write all this shit up, I got 5 of y'all who going to decide how it's flip flop out of here. And I'm gonna pay for it. I couldn't do it, and I'm married and shit going on with my husband. He's starting to fall apart, and no. And so that's why I'm ABD, all but dissertation, because that's where we stop the game at, right? Notwithstanding all the information I have and I learned, and I suspect I speak a bit the language. More often than not, people tell me, I sound intelligent, say shit like that, like, oh, okay, whatever that means. Yet I have a sense of what it means, I ran into a peer from my graduate program some years, later. And at the time that I ran into her, she was working on her obtaining her PhD. And I could hear there was something sound very different in her speech and presentation. And I could hear like, wow, yeah, she sounds smart, sound like a doctor. Like you could hear it. So I kind of have a sense when people say that you sound intelligent, like, oh, okay, all right. So yeah, I have a lot of intelligence. I have a lot of information. I learned a lot of shit. I know how to apply what I learned. That was something we learned back in the '60s in school, learning how to apply what you learn, and that was something I've always done. So as I did my process of recovery, during the crack epidemic, and then studying mm, during the crack epidemic, because I got my master's degree in 1993, when crack had hit our communities. At that part, it was just flourishing, right? And working in the community is when I developed and recognized racism white supremacy, and how it was affecting our families. The effects of slavery, I understood, is what I was seeing and living and a part of. And then I heard, because at that point, it wasn't until like early 2000s that by early 2000, I became more involved with community organizations. I hadn't been. Prior to that, I was on a professional tip for most of the 90s after obtaining my master's. And once I was introduced to the quote unquote conscious community, that opened up a whole nother world. And they talk about the effects of slavery, where I really begin to see how full of it and the impact of it in these conscious community groups. And for me, I have to say, because me, I'm a trailblazer, and I put my money where my mouth is when I have it. And I have traveled. I've traveled, across the state to different groups and connected with it, coming home to my own Philadelphia, and go into many of the different groups here in Philly and working to actively become, involved. And anyway, that's when I first ran into Umar, in early 2000, well, 2020, 2003, I believe it was, 2003, 2004. When Umar was just getting started for himself. And the experiences I had with that. Yet the experiences I began to have in the professional world with folks of African descent, their behaviors in the social service world professionally, and then communally, I I don't even know what is coming over me right now. What has hit my spirit as I think about the combination of experiences, and now even, and on a societal level, because I would say on a societal level, as a student in the PhD and my master's program, in both of those places, I have many. There were many prominent people of African descent in those programs. Running, teaching, leading, in both of those programs. And the type of support that I needed, I didn't get. Maybe others in the program, other African descendants and other students may have gotten what they needed. I didn't get what I needed. And I do have a sense that, just like at my family and communal level, I was pretty much ostracized, pushed aside, because my energy, my spirit, my message is such that people are intimidated. People are seem to be very intimidated. So And I'm learning more about myself and understanding for myself why that is, and I'm no longer carrying the burden and the belief that there's quote unquote something wrong with me and what I need to do different, how I need to be different, how I need to speak different, what I need to do, and because people don't like this, a flip flop the fuck them people don't like them, then let them keep the flip flop on going. Stop with the mixed messages. Be yourself. Oh, but don't be like that. Like, what the fuck? Either you're gonna be yourself or you're gonna accommodate other people's needs and shit and beliefs. And what do I know about what somebody else thinking? And half the time, people deny, they lie about what they're thinking, and you can all I can tell, and people know that. That's why they stay away from me because they know that I'm a seer and I see shit, and I'm a very deep empath, and I feel shit. And apparently, I must transmit something because people pick it up pretty quickly. Even people like Queen Afua, who came to Philly, this is probably about 25 years ago, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. And I purchased her book and was in line to get it signed. I was the last person in line. And when I got up to her, she said, "Oh, I felt you from all the way back there." It's like, "Oh, it was you I felt." And I wasn't even sure at that time for myself, like, oh, you know what that meant. Over time, though, I've come to know. I've come to know more about myself. Why? How? Because I've done the work, and that's what I do now in terms of helping other folks be able to do that work to really get an opportunity to clean off the shit that people have dumped all on us, and we've been carrying all this shit and beliefs and taking care of this one and doing this for that one and not wanting to say this because we don't want them to feel this and we don't want them to think that and all this shit. That shit. So that we could be free. You could be free to go, free to fly. You know, even and up to and even when that means, because that means, when we begin this process of growth and change, there's a separation that happens, and we separate from what we were connected to, and we begin to branch out and away. And it's a painful process. It's painful, lonely, can be. It's yet at the same time, it's not. It's like, oh, it's that thing Whitney Houston said, it's about learning to love yourself as you begin to go and grow through those changes, separating from what I was and moving forward to what I want and what is, and being comfortable in the what is at any given time. And that's the work of therapy. That's the work of healing. And that's the work that I can do is support and coach you through your journey if you want to go. So what else can we say for tonight? We got about 6 minutes. How do we want to close? Thanks for listening to me share. I'm not even sure what the topic of today's discussion would be, and at some point I would love to see others coming into the room, and I'm working diligently to make that happen, learning technology and all the how-tos as I me, myself, and I, we in this together, me, myself, and I. So I practice what I preach and teach, and in that regard, I've been away from YouTube for what? Oh, 15 years to 9, 10 years. Some of my videos that are on here were from 10 years ago or so. Probably about 10 years, but my husband passed away in 2013. It's when I kind of, and step back. Now, I cannot get the Malcolm clip I want to play. It's just a quick thing where he says we need a self-help program. However, what I want to say, who we are, who I've become, and who we are in the process of becoming is Macka B. And I like to play Macka B. I'll play him. I'm comfortable with playing him because um it's copyright. However, he's given permission. Um let's see them kind of black man. Uh-uh. Uh-huh. Yeah, we're gonna play them kind of black man because that's who we are now, and this is the message for I don't know whoever needs to hear it. How about that? And that's what I'm gonna end with. I'm gonna just let him roll with it. I can't give you I don't know what that 31-second clip. No, we're gonna go for the whole thing. Thanks for listening to me. Share, drop some comments.
Well, this time won't be like the last time. It's a different kind of black man time. Black man of the positive kind. Black man with a positive mind. Black man who is no longer blind. Yow, yow, yow. We are some of them kind of black man. Whoa. We are some of them kind of black man. Whoa, yeah. So, we are some of them kind of black man. Whoa. We are some of them kind of black man, whoa, yeah. We are some of them kind of black man, whoa. We are some of them kind of black man, whoa, yeah. We are some of them black man who's we own a boss. We are some of them black man who's no longer lost. We are some of them black man who have seen the mistakes of the past, and we are correcting them fast. We are some of them black man of that ancient breed. We are some of them black man who can write and read. We are some of them black man who can be no longer deceived. Mentally our minds have been freed. We are some of them kind of black man, whoa. We are some of them kind of black man, whoa, yeah. Can't take with no tie. We are some of them kind of black man, whoa. We are some of them kind of black man, whoa, yeah. The black man in the West never get a good press. Negative stereotyping the media a project. It's the crime or the sport or the music or the sex. What about the black scholars and the black intellects? We're not all like the ones upon your TV sets. We not call we woman bitch, we call them princess. We're seeking the knowledge, we want to progress. I forget ourselves out of this mess. Yes, yes, we are some of them black man with we own a mind. We are some of them black man who no eat no swine. We are some of them black man who's in touch with the nature divine. African roots every time. We are some of them black man who is hard to beat. We are some of them black man that they can't defeat. We are some of them black man. The more you want to liquid down and liquid down, we bounce right back on we feet. We are some of them kind of black man. Whoa. We are some of them kind of black man. Whoa, yeah. We are some of them kind of black man. Whoa. We are some of them kind of black man. Whoa, yeah. Say something must be done. Too much black man in a jail and prison. Too much black man in a institution. Too much youth a get expelled out of them education. Say in a Babylon, me say things gone wrong. Well, I can feel a revolution a come. Cause we a get the knowledge, we a get the wisdom. The tide it a change and the table it a turn. Say Babylon a time figure down, down, down. We are some of them black man of we own a boss. We are are some of them black man who's no longer lost. We are some of them black man who have seen the mistakes of the past, and we are correcting them fast. We are some of them black man of that ancient breed. We are some of them black man who can write and read. We are some of them black man who can be no longer deceived. Mentally our minds have been freed. We are some of them kind of black man, boy. We are some of them kind of black man, boy. Can't take with me no tie. We are some of them kind of black man, boy. We are some of them kind of black man, boy.